pieces together an African-style design. Then...
Hi, I'm Joan Steffen, and on the next Decorating Sense, we will age a new guest bedroom, turning it into a French country garden retreat. We will add rustic charm for under $500.
A whole night of shows that are just your style. Design Time Saturday night. This Saturday, only on Home and Garden Television.
Welcome back to our place.
Lester Jones is a pottery rebel. He makes striking African forms using traditional techniques, but he breaks a few rules. Joe Zanger from Our Place had a chance to visit this unique artist.
Well, maybe more than a few rules, Kathy. This man combines his African-inspired art with an unusual Japanese pottery technique, and the result is breathtaking. Take a look at some raku art. Like artifacts from an ancient civilization, Lester Jones' art combines eras and cultures. After a trip to the National African Museum of Art, his pottery began reflecting his roots. Then he discovered a Far Eastern method of glazing from the 16th century called raku, which involves smoking the pottery, and he merged the two for a unique effect.
The colors, the darkness that is achieved from the smoke, the carbon smoke, which penetrates the pores of the clay, tends to lean towards the type of forms that I'm creating, which some people say that it looks very antiquish. It looks like it's been dug up from the past, and it has that old look, that rustic look. For the longest, I was trying to find my niche within the art, finding my medium, and I noticed that the raku and the colors would fit with what I was doing, and I was inspired with the work I saw there, so it just kind of jived together. And it's kind of interesting that I'm taking a Japanese process and using it with my African heritage and putting these things together, and it seems to be working pretty fine.
Lester's pottery starts out like most, molding chunks of clay, throwing it on a wheel, and finding a form that speaks to him.
Well, actually, when I start off a piece, I usually start off with the head, and I will form a head, and I think back to my childhood and think about people I know now, and as I'm forming this piece, I started looking and thinking, hey, this looks like Aunt Arcee, and I'll work it, and if I lose it and it begins to look like Uncle Charlie, I will go with that.
It's at this point that Lester's pieces take a dramatic turn. Raku is hinged on a special glaze. Since there isn't extensive literature on the process, Lester had to become an amateur chemist, experimenting with which chemicals work best in his homemade glaze mixture.
One thing that I use that surprised a lot of people in my recipe of chemicals is borax. Borax is a particular item that I use to help the glaze melt quicker in the firing.
But it's the copper in the mixture that brings out those bursts of color.
You get some of the most vivid, bright, and muted colors. It was the colors that attracted me the most to raku. I love the dark reds, the magentas, the dark blues, and those colors come out very, very, to me, just fascinating in the raku process.
To ignite those colors, the figures first go into a high-temperature oven or kiln. After baking for an hour, instead of a gradual cooling down process, the pieces go directly from the kiln to a combustible chamber, in Lester's case, a trash can full of wood chips and newspaper.
Oxygen is not entering into this chamber with the lid on it, and that brings the copper effect out. And the color changes come as a result of allowing a small amount of oxygen into this can. By buffering it, I'm letting a little bit of oxygen in, and therefore you get the variations of the colors. The pieces should stay and cool within this can for about 20 minutes, and then you open it up and you'll be surprised.
That's because Lester has no control over which colors show up and where they appear on his pieces. It's a random effect that can turn a grown man into a kid.
It is unbelievable. You can't wait until the final piece is pulled from the kiln, and it is very exciting. It's like Christmas, opening up the lid and knocking off the ashes and seeing what you have.
Joe, anybody that sees Lester's work can never say there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right, Kathy. And as long as we have artists who are willing to take chances like that, do things a little differently, we'll always have something new to talk about and to look at.
Well, my.
It's incredible.
Isn't that, it's interesting how the pieces burst into flames. Lester says it's part of the thermal shock of changing temperatures so quickly.
And because of that, each piece has a greater chance of cracking. But it looks like Lester has his art down to a science. Inspired by Lester's passion, we're going to show you how you can take the vivid colors of African art and incorporate them into your home. Next at Our Place.
MSNBC presents an exclusive documentary every family should see. The New Heroine, cheap, addictive, and striking America's youth. To bring you this important story, we travel to all parts of the country. Our undercover investigation goes to neighborhoods you'd never expect. We urge you to watch and see what you can do to keep your kids from getting hooked. Heroine, Along Comes the Horse. This January, only on MSNBC.
In Demand presents a story about love and destiny.
Do we know each other?
Think so. Oh my.